Good day, my friends. Thank you for checking us out. This is Chris Gallagher, and this is the Preacher's Pen Weekly Bible Study Series, where we dive into the text of one chapter a week all throughout 2023. We hope that you're having an excellent day as you join us today, and we're talking about John chapter 11. Now, John chapter 11, as we have mentioned all the way through this week, is a chapter that we know of because of the shortest verse in our English translations, and that is Jesus wept. John chapter 11 and verse 35. In fact, today we're going to get into that verse a little bit, ask the question, why is Jesus weeping? What's the scene that's happening around him? Now, to fill you in on some details really quick, on Monday we read through this entire chapter, and on Tuesday we got into the death of Lazarus. Yesterday we started talking about the resurrection and the life, Jesus' discussion with Martha, and today we move Jesus, or we follow his movement rather, closer to the tomb of Lazarus. And this is going to be extremely important because Martha has already said in John chapter 11 and verse 27 that she believes that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, who's coming into the world. And now we have Mary in the scene. And in verse 28 of John chapter 11, it says, when she had said this, she went in and called her sister Mary. Now we know Mary and Martha from a previous account in the scriptures where Jesus was visiting the home of Martha and Mary was there. Mary sat at the feet of Jesus listening, and Martha was concerned about much serving and preparation. Lazarus was not in that scene, but we know from this previous text in John chapter 11 at the very beginning that Lazarus is their brother. And Lazarus is sick, but Jesus says it's not a sickness unto death. You can go back and watch some of our other videos on this on the preacherspen.org or on youtube.com/ then the @ preacherspen or rumble.com/preacherspen. But we're getting into this today because they went to Mary, and Mary says in private, they said to Mary, the teacher is here and he's calling for you. So when Mary heard this, it says she got up and she rose quickly and she went to Jesus. Now, Jesus has not yet come into the village of Bethany quite yet, but he was still there where Martha had met him, and Mary is coming to meet them. So when the Jews that were with him, as the Bible says there in verse 31, when the Jews realized that Mary was up and she was out, they followed her, and they thought she was going to the tomb because it was said privately, the teacher is here and he's calling for you. Now, when Mary came to where Jesus was, from verse 32, it says she fell at her feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. That's very reminiscent of what is said in verse 21, where Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. They both knew that Jesus had power to heal him. However, Jesus was not there. Jesus stayed where he was, and a few days later, he's going to go see Mary and he's going to go see Martha. But it says, when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews would come with her weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. And Jesus asked the question, where have you laid him? Now, Lazarus has been in the tomb for 4 days. If you go back to John chapter 11 and verse 17, Lazarus has been in this tomb for 4 days. Now, if you go and you get into Bible dictionaries and Bible commentaries and a lot of other places, you may find someone or a few people who say that the Jews believed that the spirit stayed with the body for up to 3 days. 3 is going to be that magic number for a lot of them. So what you have here is very interesting. If Lazarus is in a tomb for 4 days, that would mean, under a Jewish thought, that his spirit had already left. So that would make this miracle to them be, shall I say, a little bit more important. I'm not denying that this is a powerful miracle anyway, but it gets into the cultural significance. However, whatever is the case, Jesus wants to see where they've laid him. And they said to Jesus, come and see. And it says Jesus wept. There's a lot of discussion about why Jesus cried. Why did he weep? The others around him are weeping. He knows what he's about to do, but yet he weeps. And there is a discussion about why. I tend to take the simple thought process, and that is that Jesus is human. And even though that we know that in our lives that we're going to see other Christians again, we still weep at the passing of a Christian. We still deal with death in a very unique way, and that many times is through our tears and through who we are, because we experience loss. Jesus looks and sees that Lazarus is dead, and even though I believe that he's going to get him out of the tomb, that Jesus still experiences that emotion. It reminds me of what I mentioned last night to our adult Bible class in Matthew chapter 9, that when Jesus saw the people of the region there in Matthew chapter 9, that he had compassion on them. He felt sympathy for them because they were with sheep without a shepherd. They were like sheep who were just wandering around aimlessly without a shepherd. And he tells his disciples, the harvest is ready. And it's truly, I believe, absolutely important that we think about Jesus in a human way. Yes, he was the Son of God. He had miraculous powers, but he was still like you and I. He was human. He felt pain. He felt agony. If you don't think about that, think about it a little bit more with the cross. When Jesus is going through the cross, he knows that it's going to rise. He knows it's going to be 3 days, but yet he's got to go through that pain. That significant amount of pain for us. And he still has sweat that's as of blood drops, as Luke says. It's interesting to think of Jesus as human. But anyways, it says that Jesus wept. So the Jews, recognizing this, said, see how they loved him? But some of them said, could this guy who opened the blind eyes of the blind man also have kept this man from dying? They all realized that Jesus has a miraculous power and that he could have kept this man from dying. But they don't see the greater point. The greater point is Jesus has already told Martha, I am the resurrection and the life. Now we know the end of the story, and we know what's about to take place. It says in verse 38, Jesus, being deeply moved again, came to the tomb, and it was a cave, and a stone was laid against it. And Jesus said, take away the stone. Let's take it away. Now Martha, a sister of the dead man, of Lazarus, said to him, Lord, by this time there's going to be an odor. He's been in there for 4 days. His body is going to be decomposing. There's going to be a stench. He's already been in there. Why do you want to go see him? Jesus said to her, did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? Didn't I tell you? Jesus is saying there's a greater plan. There's a greater plan than what you think. It says, so they took away the stone, and Lazarus lifted up his eyes and said, Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this on the account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me. They believed that Jesus had miraculous power, but Jesus knows that they truly didn't believe that he was the Son of God. So Jesus lifts up his voice to the Father, and he prays. And after he had said those things, it says he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. Now picture for a moment, just for a few seconds. You hear Jesus say, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I say this on account of the people standing around, that you may believe that you sent me. Now there's some there who are weeping. There's some there who are questioning why Jesus didn't save him, but all are listening. And you hear Jesus say this. Then you hear him say, Lazarus, come out, as he yells it into the tomb. And it says the man who had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips, and his face wrapped with a cloth. Now, I don't know how you picture Lazarus coming out of the tomb, but I picture him just walking straight out of the tomb. Maybe scooting a little bit, and don't mean to be funny by that, but maybe scooting a little bit. But he comes out of the tomb, not stumbling, not wandering around, but comes out of the tomb. And Jesus said, unbind him and let him go. Now remember, he's been in the tomb for 4 days. There's going to be an odor. His body is decomposing. The Jews would have believed, some commentators say, that the spirit has already gone out. But Jesus says, Lazarus, come out. Picture the faces of Mary and Martha. Picture what that was like. Because, we may not see the day that the Lord comes back, but we may. And we're going to see all those loved ones, those Christians who've gone on before. We're going to rise to meet them in the air, as Paul says to the church in Thessalonica. So as you think about your life, do you recognize the power of Jesus, and the power of Jesus ultimately to save us all? I hope that you do. I hope that you'll dig into this story just a little bit more. We're going to come back tomorrow, and we are going to talk about what happens next. What happens next is ultimately important because the Jews still don't believe Jesus. But we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Hope that you had a great day today in studying with us. And as always, have a blessed day. We look forward to talking to you soon.